Welcome to the Tim Booker Book Sharing channel. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our updates. Let's explore the world of books together.
Today, I will interpret win-win negotiations for you. It talks about how to maximize one's interests and make the other party also feel satisfied in negotiations, achieving a win-win outcome. This topic is familiar to us all. Whether it's job hunting, renting a house, signing contracts, negotiating with businesses, or reaching agreements with relatives and friends, negotiation is a crucial social skill. However, challenges often arise in negotiations. Either the demands of both parties are too far apart to reach an agreement, or an agreement is reached, but you feel you've made significant concessions and regret it. It's also possible that you are satisfied with the outcome, but the other party feels they got a raw deal and harbors resentment. These are common issues in negotiations, and the ultimate goal of a win-win result is not achieved. The book I am introducing today aims to address these problems. The author, David Goldwich, is a negotiation expert with over 10 years of experience as a lawyer in the United States and several years of corporate management experience. Through numerous real-life cases, he guides us on how to achieve win-win outcomes in negotiations. It's essential to note that the book's definition of win-win may differ from some people's expectations. It believes that win-win is not just about reaching an agreement that both parties accept. True win-win means both parties are genuinely satisfied with the outcome, leaving no regrets. It's not about compromising after bargaining, but finding the optimal combination of resources for a trade. In essence, win-win is not about compromise. It's about ensuring satisfaction for both parties. The author believes this should be the goal pursued in every real-life negotiation. If an agreement is not genuinely satisfying for both parties and involves elements of forced acceptance, it is challenging to implement seriously. Such transactions are unlikely to be long-lasting and may even pose risks to the relationship between the parties. For example, if someone accepts a job they dislike and with a low salary due to financial pressure, their attitude towards the job is likely to be perfunctory. Similarly, if a landlord realizes they made a disadvantageous deal in a long-term lease contract, they may become increasingly impatient with tenant requests. Additionally, a company forced to purchase raw materials at a high price from another company may terminate the cooperation without hesitation once they find an alternative source. To emphasize the point further, historical lessons show us the dangers of signing unfair agreements. For instance, after World War I, the victorious nations, including Britain and France, imposed harsh conditions on Germany, including reparations, territorial concessions, and military restrictions, forcing Germany to sign the Treaty of Versailles. The excessive punishment and unequal treatment led to a sense of revenge among the German population, contributing to the rise of the Nazis and the outbreak of World War II. This illustrates that agreements reached under duress, like negotiating with a loaded gun, can ignite crises at any time. So, how can we achieve win-win in negotiations? Next, I will interpret this book from two aspects. First, we'll explore the mindset required to achieve win-win in negotiations. Then, we'll look at the strategies that can be employed to achieve win-win outcomes. I hope that after listening, you can grasp the principles and methods of win-win negotiations and use them to strive for more mutually beneficial collaborations. 1. Preconditions for win-win negotiations. First, let's examine the mindset that should be cultivated to achieve win-win negotiations. At first glance, this may seem like a truism. To achieve win-win negotiations, one naturally needs to adopt a cooperative and mutually beneficial mindset. Is there really a problem with that? Certainly, win-win is a popular concept, and cooperation and mutual benefit is a slogan everyone can recite. However, achieving win-win, or even adopting the concept of cooperation and mutual benefit, is not as easy as it sounds. Why is that? Firstly, throughout history and even in the present, many people do not approach negotiations with a win-win mindset. Instead, they treat negotiations as a win-lose situation. For them, negotiation is like dividing a cake, where one party getting more means the other gets less. The so-called successful negotiation involves finding ways to press the other party, securing a larger share of the cake, or else it's a loss. The author believes that this narrow mindset is incorrect and needs to be dispelled. Moreover, and more importantly, win-win is not just about a mindset. It also involves capability. In this book, the author introduces an important model that categorizes negotiation styles, or mindsets, into 5 types related to our confidence level and empathy capability. It's essential to understand these categories. 2. The 5 mindsets of negotiation. The first negotiation style is the avoidance type. Its characteristics include avoiding confrontation, steering clear of sensitive issues, not insisting on one's own views, and being unwilling to say no to the other party. It corresponds to low confidence levels and low empathy capabilities, bluntly put, a timid mindset that cannot achieve win-win. The second negotiation style is the accommodating type. Its features involve wanting to maintain a good relationship with the other party, avoiding refusal, emphasizing consensus, and even sacrificing one's own interests to please the other party and gain their approval. This is what we often call a pushover or a people pleaser. While these individuals have high empathy, their confidence levels are low, and achieving win-win is practically impossible. The third negotiation style is the opposite of the people pleaser and is termed the competitive negotiation style. It corresponds to high confidence levels and low empathy capabilities. The author calls it the competitive style, representing the mindset of winning at the expense of others, using tactics like threats and manipulation to gain more favorable outcomes. These are often referred to as manipulative or extreme egoistic individuals. The aforementioned mindsets cannot produce mutually satisfying results. Either an agreement cannot be reached, or if it is, one party feels disadvantaged, leading to regrets or discomfort on both sides. In any case, true win-win is not achieved. So, how can we achieve win-win? It requires us to have both high confidence levels and empathy capabilities in negotiations, being willing to assert our own demands while considering the other party's interests. Of course, the levels of confidence and empathy in individuals are not absolute, so the author makes a further distinction. Individuals with high confidence levels and high empathy capabilities are categorized as collaborative negotiators, while those with moderate confidence levels and empathy capabilities are defined as compromising negotiators. These are two similar yet distinct negotiation mindsets. 3. Compromise does not equal win-win. We are all familiar with the compromising style of negotiation, as it is quite common. Some even say that negotiation is the art of compromise. However, the author believes that compromise is not the highest level of negotiation. When compromising, both parties make sacrifices, and although they each gain something, they do not achieve their full desires. While it reflects a certain fairness, there may still be a sense of reluctance in settling for less, making it not the optimal result. In contrast, a collaborative negotiation is the true win-win. It doesn't simply require us to make concessions based on the demands of both parties, resulting in a compromise that both can accept. Instead, it urges us to engage in broader communication, identify more points of interest, and through creative thinking, discover solutions that simultaneously satisfy the demands of both parties. In this way, not only are the interests of both parties not reduced, but new value is also created, making it the optimal result. Let's illustrate the difference between compromise and win-win with a case. Once, the author and his wife were planning a vacation, but they had a disagreement about the destination. His wife wanted to go to Hawaii, while the author preferred Kyoto. What should they do? There are compromise options, such as choosing a middle ground between Hawaii and Kyoto. However, this is akin to tossing a coin, as they wouldn't know where they'd end up. Alternatively, they could go to Hawaii one year and Kyoto the next. But in this case, one person would always be compromising, affecting their emotions. Clearly, compromise is not the best solution. Is there a better way? The author and his wife communicated, discussing the specific reasons they wanted to visit these two places. His wife wanted to go to Hawaii to sunbathe on the beach, sip drinks, and enjoy the sunset, a set of experiences not available in Kyoto. Additionally, she preferred a relaxed vacation and envisioned that touring Kyoto would be hectic, involving constant bus rides between different attractions. She didn't like that scenario. On the other hand, the author's reasons for choosing Kyoto were his appreciation for historical places, Kyoto's rich history, his love for art. Kyoto has many great art pieces, and his desire to admire architecture, especially the unique temples built without nails that have stood for centuries. These were aspects Hawaii lacked. Now, is there a place that could satisfy both their desires? After identifying each other's genuine interests, they discussed and found a better option, Bali. It offered beaches, sunsets for relaxation, great art, and a sense of history. In the end, they went to Bali, achieving a win-win result. From this case, we can see that compromise is one way to solve a problem, but it's not the best method. We can consider compromise as a backup plan. However, whenever possible, we should strive for win-win and pursue the optimal result. At this point, some may wonder if this is too idealistic. Is it really that easy in reality? Indeed, achieving win-win negotiations in reality is not easy. It requires not only having a cooperative mindset but also depends on the nature of the negotiating counterpart. 4. Understanding the negotiating counterpart. As mentioned earlier, there are many competitive negotiators in reality. They are characterized by high confidence levels and low empathy, approaching negotiations with a self-centered attitude, tirelessly seeking their own interests. Dealing with such individuals makes achieving win-win challenging. When you face them with a cooperative mindset, every empathetic gesture and concession become stepping stones for them to gain more advantages. They will push relentlessly and create a situation where you feel cornered. Therefore, Before pursuing win-win negotiations, it's crucial to identify what kind of person the negotiating counterpart is. If the counterpart is also a collaborative negotiator with high confidence and empathy levels, that's ideal. Achieving win-win results with such individuals is more straightforward. The strategies we will discuss next for achieving win-win negotiations are mainly targeted at this type of person. However, if the counterpart is a manipulator, a competitive negotiator, we need to adjust our strategies and use different techniques. We will provide additional insights on this later. Additionally, when encountering negotiators with low confidence levels who are accommodating or avoidant, achieving satisfactory results is relatively easier because their demands for negotiation outcomes are not high. However, as collaborative negotiators, it is our responsibility not to take advantage of honest individuals and not deliberately exploit the goodwill of people pleasers. These are qualities and attitudes we should possess before delving into specific negotiation strategies. Next, let's discuss the strategies that can be employed to achieve win-win in negotiations. 5. Distinguishing positions and interests. When it comes to negotiation, two terms often come up. Many people might not realize that although these terms are often used interchangeably, they are not the same thing. The failure to distinguish between these two concepts, positions and interests, is a significant reason why many negotiations fail. The term position refers to the demands and proposals put forward by both parties during negotiation. On the other hand, interests refer to what both parties genuinely value, the reasons behind their positions. To use an analogy, if a position is the tip of an iceberg floating on the water's surface, interests are the foundation hidden beneath the water. Positions are the demands we voice, while interests are our true needs. In many cases, people confine themselves to their positions because abandoning a position can make them feel indecisive and lose face. Due to the constant effort to present themselves as firm and consistent in their positions, people may not even notice that defending a position may compromise their own interests. This is a significant reason for the failure of many negotiations. Truly insightful negotiators distinguish between interests and positions, focusing on interests and downplaying positions. Through continuous exploration, they find solutions that fully satisfy the needs of both parties. Let's consider an example. Two sisters were arguing about the ownership of an orange. Their positions were irreconcilable because the orange was indivisible. One person getting it meant the other would not. The only solution seemed to be cutting the orange in half, but this would mean neither person could fully satisfy their needs. Later, through discussion, it was discovered that one sister wanted the orange to grate its peel for a cake, while the other wanted to squeeze its juice. Now, by simply peeling the orange and dividing it into peel and flesh, both their needs were met, resolving the issue. Some might think this story is fictional and unrealistic. However, such situations are not uncommon in reality, and the book presents a case that illustrates this. In 1979, Egypt and Israel signed a peace treaty. The ownership of the Sinai Peninsula was a stumbling block in the agreement. Historically, the Sinai Peninsula belonged to Egypt and was occupied by Israel during the 1967 Six-Day War. Israel insisted on retaining all or part of the territory, while Egypt sought to keep the entire region. Clearly, their positions were incompatible. However, after in-depth discussions and clarifying each other's interests, the parties reached an agreement. In reality, what Israel wanted was not the territory itself, but the security buffer provided by the fortress. Egypt did not aim to gain full sovereignty over the peninsula, but rather wished to protect its traditional heritage. Eventually, Egypt was willing to demilitarize parts of the land to secure its primary interests, and Israel was willing to return the land to ensure its security. Both parties' interests were fully maintained, resulting in a win-win outcome. Therefore, the author believes that in negotiations, we should not dwell endlessly on positions but should focus on both parties' interests. For any position presented by ourselves or the counterpart, we should inquire about the reasons and purposes. This helps discover the underlying interests behind each position. Subsequently, based on the compatibility of both parties' interests, finding ways to exchange interests and satisfy both parties' needs becomes key to reaching a win-win agreement. 6. Be good at identifying chips. Of course, when it comes to exchanging interests, another important concept cannot be ignored: chips. It has been emphasized repeatedly earlier that in negotiations, attention should be given to interests and consider the needs of both parties. So, how are interests manifested? This is where chips come into play. Many people, upon hearing the term chips, may think of valuable items. However, that's not entirely accurate. Chips, in the context of negotiations, refer to anything valuable that can be exchanged. This includes tangible items like money and goods, as well as intangible things such as brand reputation, emotional needs, and cognitive perspectives. To increase the chances of cooperation and mutual benefit, one must be adept at identifying chips. The book presents a case to illustrate this point. Once, the author attended a concert of a famous band. The guitarist of the band was excellent at creating a lively atmosphere. During breaks in the performance, he continuously threw his guitar picks into the audience, sparking a playful scramble among the spectators. Unfortunately, the author had no luck and couldn't grab a pick even until the end of the concert. In the aftermath, he walked onto the stage, hoping to find one. However, his efforts were in vain. Not willing to give up, he approached a staff member who was still handling equipment, inquiring if it was possible to get a pick. The staff member regretfully replied that he couldn't help. Just then, the author heard the staff member coughing. Seizing the opportunity, he offered his cough medicine, explaining that he could provide it in exchange for a guitar pick. Surprisingly, the staff member went to the band's trailer and returned a few minutes later with a pick, trading it for the author's cough medicine. What seemed like an impossible situation now had a solution. In this case, the author used a common cough medicine to obtain a cherished rock memorabilia, and the other party used a commonplace guitar pick to acquire essential cough medicine. Both parties exchanged something of small cost for something of significant value, exemplifying the concept of win-win. Such situations are quite common. As mentioned earlier, two sisters each had different needs. One wanted juice, and the other wanted to bake a cake. The one interested in juice didn't care about the fruit peel, while the one needing orange peel was indifferent to the fruit pulp. In political negotiations, some countries may desire land, while others prioritize security. Similarly, in the workplace, some employees seek recognition, while others aim for increased income. These are all foundations for win-win outcomes. It's important to understand that due to differing perspectives, preferences, and circumstances, people evaluate things differently. What one person sees as garbage may be considered a treasure by another, or at least there may be a difference in value assessments. Therefore, in negotiations, we should carefully weigh which concessions that seem inconsequential to us might be highly valued by the other party. Additionally, what might be effortless for them, but holds extraordinary value for us. By exchanging chips with different perceived values, we can make minimal sacrifices and gain more benefits, achieving a win-win result. 7. Introduce more chips to drive win-win negotiations. In reality, negotiations usually involve not just one decision, but a series of terms. In other words, the exchange in negotiations encompasses not only a single chip but a combination of various chips. Therefore, it is crucial to strategize on how to utilize the combination of chips to expand the space for win-win negotiations. Let's consider business negotiations. The most familiar chip for many is the price. However, a complete transaction involves many other chips, such as payment methods, delivery schedules, risk allocation, and time arrangements, among others. For instance, when selling a particular component, setting a minimum price might be $100 per unit. However, if the buyer pays in cash, picks up the goods directly from the factory, and places a larger order than usual, you might be willing to accept a lower price. If we focus solely on the price, the negotiation space is limited. However, by considering other conditions, introducing more chips, the negotiation space increases, and the opportunity to reach a deal grows. In essence, any negotiation has multiple potential solutions. Each solution is a combination of chips traded. The more chips we introduce, the more alternative solutions we have. By presenting more options with diverse chips, we increase the likelihood of achieving a win-win result. So, how can we use chips to create more solutions and strive for mutual benefit? The author mentions 3 key points in the book. Firstly, it is essential to clarify our own needs. Consider what the other party can offer and prioritize various interests we hope to achieve. Focusing on our genuine interests helps us stay focused on what truly matters and avoids being distracted by trivial matters. Secondly, analyze and predict the needs of the other party. Create a list of things the other party hopes to obtain and that we possess. This includes not only tangible material needs but also intangible emotional needs. One can even consider Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from survival needs and safety needs to being respected and self-actualization, to identify the other party's needs. The more needs of the other party we can identify and satisfy, the more chips we have, and the greater the value. Finally, integrate the chips of both parties to form a series of options with combinations of trades. For example, option 1 involves offering chips ABC while the other party provides chips XYZ. Option 2 involves offering chips ADF while the other party provides chips VYZ. Option 3 involves offering chips AD while the other party provides chips WXYZ, and so on. In negotiations, if one option doesn't work, move to another. If the chips in one option are insufficient, add or adjust some chips until a satisfactory result is reached for both parties. In summary, it is important to believe that opportunities exist to improve the situations of both parties through transactions since everyone's circumstances are different. The more interest and options we present in negotiations, the greater the possibility of achieving mutual benefit. With extensive communication and effort, a result that satisfies both parties can ultimately be achieved. Conclusion. At this point, the interpretation of this book is coming to an end. Let's review the key points. In today's interpretation, we first emphasize the importance of win-win negotiations. The significance of win-win negotiations lies in the fact that if an agreement is not genuinely satisfactory for both parties, it is challenging to achieve serious implementation and may even bring hidden risks to the relationship. Next, we introduce the mindset that win-win negotiations should possess. The most crucial aspect is to dispel the concept of zero-sum games, not viewing negotiations as a process of dividing the cake, but as an opportunity to discover interests. Through thorough communication, finding solutions that satisfy the demands of both parties and create new value is essential. We also explain the strategies commonly used in win-win negotiations. First, distinguish between positions and interests in negotiations, downplay positions, and focus on interests. Second, analyze the needs and interests of both parties, treating these interests as chips that can be exchanged. Finally, integrate these chips to form a series of alternative options and, through adjustments, reach a result satisfactory to both parties. Additionally, the original book discusses the importance of alternative plans, how to maintain relationships with counterparts, and how to leverage psychological weaknesses in negotiations. These contents can be used to address an unresolved question mentioned earlier. We previously mentioned that a challenge in win-win negotiations is dealing with competitive negotiators who lack empathy and solely pursue their own interests. In such situations, where opponents may view any concession as an opportunity to attack, it's necessary to adjust strategies. Instead of solely empathizing and conceding, more assertive measures or more cunning methods must be taken to force the opponent into a compromise. The original book provides 2 points in this regard that are worth considering. Firstly, prepare alternative plans, also known as Plan B. In negotiations, regardless of how much we desire a win-win outcome, we must be prepared for the possibility of negotiation breakdown. It's not determined by our subjective wishes. An alternative plan acts as a safety net. If a better result can be achieved in negotiations, that's excellent. However, if not, the alternative plan serves as our retreat and safeguard. Having alternative plans gives us the confidence to assert reasonable demands and say no to aggressive negotiators. Without alternative plans, we might easily find ourselves in a passive predicament in negotiations. Therefore, formulating alternative plans is crucial. Secondly, don't abandon traditional negotiation skills. Traditional negotiation, involving zero-sum games and competitive negotiations, is characterized by many tactics and methods, such as sky-high demands followed by concessions, pretending to have a certain attitude to test the opponent's bottom line. One party playing the bad cop, while the other plays the good cop, and so on. These tactics are actually contradictory to the spirit of win-win negotiations. However, the author believes that, for the purpose of identifying and responding to these strategies, that is, for the sake of knowing oneself and knowing the enemy, we should not abandon these strategies. Thus, the book dedicates a considerable amount of space to discussing these negotiation skills. Interested readers can delve into the original book for more details. In summary, according to the author, the use of tactics, the concealment of information, and the competitive mindset of bargaining on respective positions will never disappear. However, confrontational negotiations will become less prevalent. In today's globally interconnected world, where we repeatedly interact with the same group of people, achieving win-win outcomes becomes an increasingly sought-after goal. Learning win-win negotiations is not only for maintaining long-term cooperative relationships, but also for adopting a forward-looking attitude towards life. All right, this concludes the interpretation of this book.
Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom and practice, achieve our financial goals, and create a better future together. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.